All right. Hey, what's up, Polar fam? This is Shibbear and Julian. I think I got that right this time. Here with our weekly Polar Community AMA to keep all of you up to date on the latest and greatest with Polar. Go over anything that might have happened in the last week or so, as well as what's happening now, what's happening for the future. It's also our way to reach out to each and every one of you directly, answer any of your questions that you may have along the way. So please feel free to either request to speak at any point in here and we will bring you up on the stage live, or just simply post in the AMA Questions Weekly channel on the Discord and we will answer all of them for you today. We do have some announcements to make this week, which is fantastic. So if you guys have not gone and read the announcement yet from Enor on the 24th, just 3 days ago, I'd highly recommend go read that in depth. I'm going to kind of go over just some of the overview of it and, of course, answer any questions that you might have there, right? So to go out, first and foremost, we got some updates, right? So we're good there. Josh, our lead dev, is either back in town today or later tonight, depending on that time zone over there. And then we should see a few things coming up in the few days coming up here. So from this announcement here, hopefully these timelines are still perfect, but Josh should be back in town and it shouldn't be an issue. We should see the Polar Lottery back live here in the next day or so. Enor said between July 27th and 28th. That's what I'm going off of here. So that would allow us to have, you know how we had that old lottery for like a couple days and it was a little bit luggy and it just didn't really flow super well. We've updated it, we've upgraded it, all the contract side done, everything's done, and it just has to be deployed. So that'll allow the lottery to work automatically, which is fantastic. And you can just have it go. For example, I think he's going to set it for every 24 hours. Boom, new lottery there. Close out old lottery, open up new lottery, automated, don't have to go in and do anything. It just works. Why is this important? While this might not be the most groundbreaking thing on the whole planet by any means, having that lottery gives you something else to do with your Polar tokens if you so choose to. So I know we still have some Olympus that we can give away there in the lottery, and I think that's going to be a big piece of that there. We can utilize those tokens to either replenish the rewards pool, we can utilize them in a burn strategy, we can utilize them in a variety of different things. But I think just having that option and having that lottery run continuously, automatically, gives us some area to expand upon. So right now it's going to be with the Polar nodes, obviously. We could also do future things along with that as we kind of navigate and grow the lottery itself, where you can just have a pool of tokens, for example. And as it builds up 10,000 tokens and you had to put in, 100 or whatever, maybe it can select a winner for 10,000, or you can do it with AVAX, or you can do it with USDC.E. Once you have these lotteries established and you can grow and expand them from where we're going to start, it allows it to be a pretty decent piece of the protocol. And like I said, nothing groundbreaking, but it does give us a little bit of something to play with and interact with that we don't currently have, which is always a plus. So the next thing is one that we've had a bunch of questions about, but it's something, unfortunately, that most of us already have the answer to here. It just so happens that Enor used the terminology cyclic side of the nodes, and that's where people got a little bit confused. But basically, he's just saying for the version 4.0 update, that'll bring in that node life that we were talking about earlier, for which you have to purchase life potions to then expand the life period. Basically a decay model for the nodes. So that'll come with version 4.0. Before 4.0 comes out, they're expected just a few days after the lottery comes out that version 3.5 will come out. This will be kind of like a branch update. So that'll allow it to, sort of move in a little bit more naturally and simply to the version 4.0, which is a much larger update, which will then allow us to implement some of the other updates that I talked about last week, where, as I mentioned, we're going to introduce nodes being purchased with things other than Polar. And there's plenty of pros and cons of that. I'm sure that many people do have concerns about how that'll actually work. But overall, it's a decent system. It allows us to, encourage an introduction of actual revenue into the protocol rather than just compounded revenue, though the compounded revenue is pretty important. So that'll be something that we still see. Obviously, just people will likely exchange their Polar for AVAX or USDC, or I think it's going to be a stable coin. So probably USDC or DAI, and then they'll be able to create the nodes from there, which will be a good thing. I think it's going to be an overall net benefit, and it'll be cool to see how that unfolds over the weeks and months after it's fully introduced in the version 4.0. I know some people have concerns about it. I'm sure we'll be okay. So voice your concerns. We're more than happy to talk about them and work through the pros and cons of it, because we are very clear that some people are not going to, want to put in some stable coin. They'd rather just compound their tokens. That is going to be where, some of the tension might come in, I guess, so to speak. But nevertheless, I think it's a net positive to the protocol. And I think that version 4.0 and the life system of the nodes and having the potions implemented and introducing a stablecoin to create nodes, this puts us all on a path to finally get back to the point where we can start implementing these burn strategies that I've said that we should and have implemented for quite some time now. Obviously, emissions are very high still. That's still a very real thing as more and more nodes are created every single day. So we need to start taking that circulating supply and at least getting it closer back to where we started at, which was 1 million tokens. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to happen overnight, so don't expect like, boom, you wake up after 4.0 and you see 10 times on the token. I certainly would not expect that. But I just want to see a trend in the positive direction. That's what I'm looking for. I want to see a net surplus of burns to new mints. That's progression. Once that starts happening, and the markets, this could be a false recovery, but I might go into the economic impacts of everything that we're dealing with on the US side here in a little bit. But if the markets do happen to recover, or at least stay where they are, relatively normal, plus a little bit of a burn system, plus some new demand, plus some, just general more positive sentiment. If the token price starts even going in a positive direction, that is incentive for people to buy, because people don't buy the quote unquote falling knife, right? It's honestly a bad investment strategy. It's good to wait until there's a recovery, and then you're like, okay, I'm comfortable with the recovery. Let's buy in and grow this token up from here, because you can see that potential for return. So that should be a few good things coming up. I expect the lottery in the next, day or so from that announcement. If I hear anything otherwise, I will certainly let you guys know, but that's what I'm operating off of now. Shortly after that, a few days later, we should have the version 3.5, and then the 4.0 will follow that at some point in the nearest future after. We've also seen a pretty interesting teaser on the Polaris game side. So this is I did mention in previous AMAs that I'm like not a huge gamer by any means, and that's not really my forte, except drinking some moonshine and playing Warzone with the homies once every few weeks. That's really not my thing. But as I watch this gameplay, it gives me it's like a simple gameplay style that I'm actually okay with. I actually would even participate in games like this, whether they were with Polar or otherwise. And it kind of reminds me of like the old Legend of Zelda days on like the whatever that was, Super Nintendo or whatever it was back in the day. Kind of gives me those vibes, which I enjoy. I think those are really cool to have, and if we can have it as part of a Polar platform, and that allows us to grow that up from there. If you read that fully, the Polaris is going to be developed on Unity. That's a much bigger project, obviously more in-depth and well-designed over time. So that gives us something to work with in the shorter term, as well as grow into the longer term. So that's most of the latest and greatest and the things that I'm actually pretty excited for that we're going to have here with Polar coming up into the nearest of future. Finally, we got some stuff going on, right? That's what we need to see. I do also want to say that, hey, once we get these things that can start going live, I do have that TweetDeck access to Polar, just like I put out that tweet just now. I can just at least push this information out there. I'll obviously retweet it with my personal Twitter, but it's having it on the official Polar Twitter is very important. And then I'm going to ask of all of you here to stand up to the challenge as I make us remember our old school Polar raid group? That's kind of what I want to have happen, where we post this Twitter raid and say, hey, go like, share, comment, spam it. I don't care what you do with it. Just be nice to people. Don't be hostile. But get that word out there, because the more people that see the product, especially as we're getting real updates out and real things live, the better chances that we are to grow our protocol at this point, which is very important. So that's the simplest thing I can ask from you guys. It costs you nothing but a few seconds of your time and a little bit of motivation, which fortunately has been actually on the upswing in the last few weeks here. So I think we're all feeling pretty good for the most part. A couple naysayers, but that is what it is there. That's life. So I'm pretty excited. I look forward to all these things coming up and giving you guys more updates. I'm actually, maybe I have a little pep in my voice today because I have something to actually give you, unlike the last few weeks where we were just chatting and chilling and vibing, doing all that good stuff there. So shout out to you guys. Thank you all for at least sticking with us as we get to here. It's about to be August and good things are coming to Polar, and I so much look forward to what's going on behind the scenes, as well as what's about to go live to all the people. So I believe that was all the major updates that I had to cover at the beginning of the AMA there, just as I do at every point of the AMAs every single week. So please, If anybody does have any questions, simply request to speak, or more simply, post that in the AMA Questions Weekly channel in our Discord, and we will be more than happy to answer each and every one of your questions for you guys. Obviously, I like talking with you guys in person, but we are just as happy to read each of those questions there, give you some answers to them, and especially you guys with the most complicated of names. I know that Julian, I think I'm getting that right. He can correct me if I'm wrong. We'll love to try to pronounce those names here in maybe right about now, because no one's requested to speak yet. So you can take the floor.
I think there's no one requesting to speak, so I'll just start with the first question from Babushka. There's a wallet with more than 3 million tokens. Who owns it?
So you'll have to post me which wallet you're looking at, because there's a few things out there. There's obviously the claims wallet. There's a liquidity pool. I think you're looking at the LP, just off the top of my head. But if you want to copy and paste that wallet, I'll look at it and verify with you. But it's probably the LP, liquidity pair wallet, if I had to take a guess just off the top of my head. Because all the team wallets are vested. You can look at all of those. And obviously, we have the claims pool, which we've all been very keen to look at. So that's what I'd have to guess it would be.
So the next question from, I think it's pronounced Jamin. When will we start burning tokens? Will there be an option for the investors to send coins to the burn wallet as well to help out? Thanks for what you do. I've been here since January, so earn a decent amount of Polar, like a lot of people. We could burn we could burn up a few thousand each.
Yeah, so that's a great question there. And maybe I'll go into a little bit of what a burn of token actually is for everyone here, because not everybody's going to be very familiar with that terminology. So there's a few different ways to implement burns. And it doesn't mean that the tokens are literally exterminated from the world, but they're put into a dead wallet. And there's like that main 0x00000 dead wallet that's out there. And that's what most protocols will use. I've seen others use like internal dead wallets or contracting a dead wallet. But I think that main dead wallet is probably the better one to do, in my opinion, because then there's no way it could be accessed. None of us have any access to it. So what is a burn? Simply put, you're taking Polar, or you're taking whatever token that's in circulation, sending it to the dead wallet. So now it's no longer in the accessible circulating supply. The token is there. It can be looked at through that dead wallet. You can look to see how many tokens are in that dead wallet, but no one can ever buy, sell, or otherwise access it. So a few ways that protocols implement burn strategies are simply burns, where you just send excess tokens to that dead wallet. And that could be like all the vested tokens from the team. If they chose to send them all to the dead wallet, it goes right to the burn wallet, right? That being said, that's not going to impact price, because you're not selling or buying the token. You're just taking the tokens that are here and just moving them to the point that they can no longer be sold. That's the key to it. No longer can be sold. That's what makes that burn pretty important there. The other method is a buy and burn strategy. So they'd be buying it from Trader Joe or Pancake Swap if they're on BSC, or Sushi Swap if they're on Ethereum, whatever they are. They're buying it basically from the liquidity, and then so it's a buy action, and then they send it over the dead wallet from there. So that's what increases the price, is that buy without a counteracting sale. Now, people might liquidate and sell because of that buy, of course, but that's separate than the other equations that we're thinking about. So if there were to be a protocol to buy tokens and then go and sell them, that's the burn strategy that would impact price. That could be done effectively by, just simply the team using those life potions and buying $5,000 worth of Polar because they have that much to utilize in the pool, and then immediately buying it from Trader Joe, boom, sending it to the dead wallet. You see the buy, you have the TX for the buy, you have the TX for the sending it to the burn wallet, and that is effectively a buy and burn strategy there. So once those happen, obviously you can take that circulating supply and reduce it by the amount that was just sent to the dead wallet. Now, in our case, we're a node protocol, so tokens are being generated every day in that rewards pool. Those are not yet a part of the circulating supply until you claim them. Once you claim them, then they're part of the circulating supply. So right now, they're just basically contracted placeholders. by the smart contract. So once you claim them, now they're in your wallet as circulating supply. So to answer your question, Jam, and if you were to just claim and send them to a dead wallet, that just means that no one can ever sell those, and it offsets that circulating supply formula that I just kind of talked about there. So that is a way, if people want to do that, there's literally nothing stopping anybody in the world from doing that there. Obviously, I started out as an investor here, so I don't cash out my Polar. I just simply will claim, and then I'll buy some Polar, and then I'll create nodes. And I do that once a week just as my way to support. And obviously now I have a lot of nodes and a lot of Polar, but I'm not selling it. So I guess I'm part of the problem in the sense that I'm part of the circulating supply, but not as far as the token price is concerned with sales. So I hope that answers the question there. I kind of went probably more in depth than most people were expecting with that one, but that's kind of the general philosophy of a buy and sale, or excuse me, buy and burn compared to just a burn strategy itself by sending it to a dead wallet.
Yeah, I think what he or she was also asking is if there will be the possibility for something like a donation pool or something where the holders can send their tokens to if they want them to have them burned.
Yeah, and that could be a thing, and it would basically just be like a middleman. So let's say I created some multi-sig wallet and called it the Polar Burn wallet and said, hey, if you guys want to, throw Polar in here and I'll burn it once a week. That just means that I'm going to take that and I'm going to send it myself to a dead wallet once a week. Basically, I'd be serving as a middleman. You'd be sending it to that account, and then I would push it over to the burn wallet, whatever. So it would be the very same thing that if you just sent it to the dead wallet as far as the the tokenomics side is concerned. But if Polar is bought and immediately sent to a burn wallet, then you've created a buy without a sell, and that's kind of the most important thing. Otherwise, you're just burning basically tokens that are just being generated off of the smart contract without buys and selling them, and that's where the token price goes down. So I think a lot of people hopefully understand that. If I have more questions on that, I'm more than happy to go into that because I think it's pretty cool philosophy. But you can also poke holes into some protocols that have burns, but not buys and burns. So where are those burns coming from? What are they burning? If they're burning the team tokens, it's a net positive because that means they can't sell them. But if they're just burning like a rebase token that's just rebasing X percentage a day and they just burn to offset it, what are they really doing? I don't know. So things like that you could think of, increase your educational knowledge base for the DeFi world, poke the holes in those ships that are out there in the space.
All right, perfect. The next question is from Fender Bender. How many members are on the marketing team and what are their usernames? Also, what is the marketing plan for V4? I already referred them to the team member section in the docs, but maybe you'd like to go into it a little deeper.
Yeah, so right now we have Julian, he's on the marketing team. We have a member named Theranam who is active, but I personally haven't interacted with a whole lot. I think there's a language barrier. So, as you guys know, I'm pretty straight shooting with you guys. I think there is a decent language barrier with some of the people brought on because I just asked a couple times for just a basic bio, right? Just so you guys know who they are in their own words, because I can just put a username and what they're supposed to be doing in there. But what's their experience, stuff like that, I think is still things that would be good to get out to the world here for all of us to see. So Theranam is also on the marketing strategy team. And then Oxy is primarily in charge of the Twitter. I did mention earlier that I now have access to this Twitter. So I'll be helping kind of push that front there. And again, I'm not taking shots at anybody, so please don't perceive that as such. But I think that, I got across that needs some help. And I'm more than happy to help implement that. And then once they're comfortable and they want to take it over full time, I would love for that to happen. That's great experience for anybody that's trying to get involved in DeFi. So we'll kind of go off there. So those are the three primary people that are kind of involved with marketing. Obviously, I don't know what you guys want to call me. I'm still kind of that community manager role. So I do a lot of marketing on, I guess, my own end, but it's more so community engagement, which falls in lines with marketing, but it's not quite that higher. Like, I'm not going to go find the influencers to push the product on. I know Enor has already identified quite a few, and they have a marketing strategy set up for the version 4.0. So I'll kind of let them lay that out as they can. or if they need me or ask me to help with any of it, of course, that'll be what I do. But I'm more so just a branch trying to get the information from them down to you guys and then advise along my way there.
Great. The next question is from Captain Tibby. Is Polar looking into using the Drip Network scratchies?
So they just released that information yesterday, and as of right now, there's been no formal talks on the Polar side, but I've looked into it. I've read over the document. Obviously, it seems like a pretty good thing to look into because it's really a no net negative sort of thing. But we have so much going on our end. I'm not going to promise anything, of course, because that could be, I don't want to give false promises to anybody, but that is something that I would look into. I've been looking into on my own end, and I will advise if that is something that we can kind of navigate to in the future.
So the next question from Nicholas regarding the price. Will we see the Polar price at $3 again?
Okay, so I generally don't speculate on price, but I will tell you this. When Polar was at $3, our circulating supply was 1 million. It is approximately 6 million right now or so. So it is not realistic to compare what the price can be to what it was a few months ago. It's just simply not realistic. Could we get there? Sure. We could also get invaded by aliens. We could get hit by a meteorite. Volcanoes could go off in the world, or the world could be at world peace and world hunger could be solved tomorrow. Those are all possibilities, but they're not on the track right now, right? So until we are on the right track as far as getting tokens back down to where they were, and if we had a level of demand that we had back in the day, I think that would be something that we might be able to see. But I think as of right now, we need to understand that we are not where we were a few months ago, and the new tokenomics that we're working with allows for growth to happen. But personally, I'm not looking at $3. I'm looking just for improvement. I think that's the better way to kind of consider everything that we're working with here, rather than trying to get focused on something. Then I also don't want to sell you false news. I'm not going to say, hey, yeah, we're going to be at $3 to $5, because we're likely not going to be there, because we have a totally different tokenomic strategy than we did prior, tokenomic variable, I should say. So that being said, if we get back to that tokenomic variable, it could be a possibility. Right now, I wouldn't think too much about it. Yay, thank you, Dejan. You answered the question for everybody. Sorry, continue.
Perfect. Still no requests to speak. So next question from the fonts, I think it is. Many other no projects have failed, unfortunately, especially in the last 3 months. What steps are you taking to combat this? Common failure reasons are reward pool not funded, or someone hacks and steals everything, etc.
Yeah, so those are two very different variables of failures. One of which is, in my opinion, an excuse for a rug. I think that yes, there are things that get hacked, and there are contracts that get hacked and exposed, and we've seen that. We definitely have seen that. Not super common though. More commonly, you have like a rogue dev or something that basically rugs a protocol. So I think when you're talking about somebody hacking and stealing everything, that's usually that's a malicious act by definition. Now I would say that a good audit of the new contracts that would be beneficial. It would help expose any potential vulnerabilities before they were ever exposed by a malicious actor. But I don't have any information to put out there on that end. I think audits are important in general. So that could be a good thing in the future. And in my opinion, audit's not about marketing. It's about ensuring the security of your contract itself. So maybe that could be something that can come out into the Polar world. I don't have any information to put out there on that end just yet. But to answer the primary question, so many others have failed in the last 3 months. Fortunately for us, we still have a like $1.1+ million treasury, right? So we have a lot to work off of. So we're still working, we're still updating the node protocol, and then we're bringing in some other things. And I know we've talked about this before. I don't think the game is going to be a game changer by itself. I don't think any individual piece that Polar is doing is going to be that one thing that flips it into high gear and reverses us back to the moon. But I think as we continue to grow and build, that gives us the best chance of survival and thriving as we navigate through this current market and into the future. Because if we are able to continue to build in the down market and eventually we get an up market and we have a whole lot more than we had the last up market for DeFi, that's a good thing, right? That's very easy to then push out to new investors in DeFi and say, hey, this is what we got. Not only are we a node protocol, but we have X, Y, and Z as well. And this is how they've been working. We've been around since January 2022, X, whatever. So that's the idea there is we have the money to build. We have the people that want to build. So Enor has never expressed any exhaust, never expressed any fear or doubt. Definitely concerned that the token price goes down. So I don't want to say he's not unconcerned about everything, but it's more like concern and be motivated to build, because we can't just let it fall forever. It has to be a product that people want for it to succeed. So that's why we're all here building, trying to grow this up. That's why I'm here doing these AMAs literally every week, whether we had news or not. We're here to push the product that we have and allow it to grow into the future, because it is a very, very important aspect to the future is the growth. If we don't grow now, then it's a waste of time and a waste of money. And I've mentioned this in other places, but there is nothing that I hate to see more than a protocol with a large treasury, sometimes even 10, 15, 20, $50 million that don't do anything. Like, what the hell are they doing? Pardon my language there, but what are they doing with that money? If they're not building, like, are they just extending their salaries indefinitely? Like, I don't know. What are they doing? So fortunately here with Polar, we are using this money to build for the vision of that Enor has for the Polar future. And of course, there could always be other ways to utilize funds, different investment strategies, different things there. But at least we have a strategy that we're sticking to, and we're not chasing that little, golden nugget around trying to find the next way out. We're focused. We're going to build what we're going to build here, and we're going to allow it to grow in and adjust accordingly as needed. But of course, we have that vision, and we're focused on building up that vision.
So far, the last question I think is from Babushka again. When a live system is out, are the nodes going to have full HP, or will it depend on when it was created?
Yes, that's a great question there. So I'm going to just bounce one back before, then I'll answer that one, Babushka. I'll answer your first question. So Dejan posted the pair wallet in the AMA Questions Weekly tab. So that is the wallet that has a 3 million Polar, and it is a liquidity pair on Trader Joe. So that's the paired wallet on there. So fear not. There is not somebody out there with 3 million Polar waiting to ruin our lives. It's the liquidity pair on Trader Joe. So good news. Good news for us all. And fortunately, my brain was right on that. So good times there. All right. So next, when the live system is out, are the nodes going to have full HP, or it depends on when they were created? So the latest I've heard is it's going to depend on when they were created. And that's what I've talked about a lot. I know Enor has been trying to hyper-focus on how to identify that time of creation that would create an actual ROI. And I'm allowing them to do that mostly, unless they were to approach me on helping, but they're kind of working on that in their own sense to get that all figured out. And that's going to be a very good thing in my opinion, is identifying that date, focusing that date, and then kind of moving forward from there. So that allows it to grow over time. And then also not just totally change everything on a whim and say, okay, everyone starts at 0. Good luck, figure it out. Or at 100, and it still creates that same issue that we've been running into. So ideally, there's a reasonable date identified, and then we kind of go from there. So that's I think I answered that question mostly.
Perfect. I think. New question from ZJ. Is the cost of the life potions going to change according to the price of Polar?
From what I understand now, I believe it's going to be designed as a fixed price point, but I am not entirely sure. It could be a variation of Polar, or it could be something where it's either assessed by like the average Polar cost over a month. I'll use Thor as an example. They assess their actual maintenance fees by the average cost of the token over that like 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. So that could be a theory. I haven't heard anything definite just yet, but I think it's going to start out as a fixed price and then it'll likely adjust as we move forward, or it'll be a fixed price in relation to the actual node itself. And that would probably be a better way where it's like, hey, if your Everest cost, 1150 or, whatever the case might be, Polar, whether it's a lucky box or whatever, then it'll be like, X percentage of that in translation to Polar to that stable coin. Then I think that could be a strategy. It would take a little bit more work, but I don't have a finite answer on that just yet. But I'll try to push and get something on that because it's good information to know.
So there are two people writing currently, so I think we should just wait for those questions.
Yeah, there's Keith there. I'm going to bring you up to speak. Good morning. I've got your time zone right now whenever you come up here.
It is. Good morning, Shib and Julian. How are you?
Doing pretty well, man. How are you?
Yeah, good, thank you. Good, thank you. The weather's still pretty bad, but hey, it is what it is. I just wanted to say on the last question around the sort of the percentagizing or the sort of the flexing of the cost of potions is something that I have raised in a previous AMA, and I think it's really good to explore that and understand sort of what that could do for the protocol, primarily because I think if the potion price is fixed, and like, I don't know, fixed now, the price could be quite cheap and you could just stack them and continue to have your nodes paying out at max, which would then continue to sort of cause the emissions that we're seeing at the moment, although it'll be a bit slower as some of those profits would be used for the potions. But sort of tying that into the protocol in a way where the emissions could be controlled, I think would be a good strategy, especially for longevity as well.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that would be beneficial in there is controlling the variables. And I think the more controlled variables, and anyone who's ever taken like a good old fashioned school science class, there's so many variables in a certain equation, and the controlled variables are the ones that you know what they're going to do, right? So, and in that sense, I would be trying to control some more variables in order to, I guess, maintain that same positive approach moving forward. If I understood you correctly, I think that's what you were getting at there, right?
Yeah. But that's cool. That's all I had. I don't really have a question this week. I'm just liking the information that's come out, and I think it's pretty good. That it's come at a really good time. So hopefully that in the next sort of week or two, we really start to see some progress, which is fantastic. Love it.
Hey, I appreciate you, man. Thank you for coming up here again, and I really hope so too. And I'm very hyped that we actually had some information to go over today. It makes me feel much better to present information.
Awesome. Thanks, and enjoy the rest of your night.
All right, Dad. See you around, man. All right. Ismail, I will bring you up here onto the stage. Once you accept it, you will be live, if you so wish to. How's it going?
What's up, Shib? What's up, Julian? Good morning.
Doing pretty well over here. How are you doing over there?
I'm doing great, man. I just have a quick question. So, are you thinking, guys, of doing some kind of refund for those who were affected by the crash before the V4 will come out? Because I heard that there is some kind of decay option for the node. So I don't think that it will be fair for those who are affected by the crash to decay their current node. So any answer about regarding this one, Shib?
Yeah, so I definitely understand the concern, but there is not going to be any form of a refund put out to any of those different times there because it's just not possible. If we were to spend X amount of dollars to do that, one that creates a precedent, which isn't a good precedent in my opinion, because there isn't really anything that caused a refund to be triggered. You still have your nodes; they're still there. Things have changed, of course, and obviously the price has changed. So I definitely understand how that would be stressful for many people. So I'm not going to undermine that struggle that a lot of people do go through. But you still have your nodes, and what our job here now is to create an environment that then creates a positive return back to these nodes in some aspect. And that's why we're trying to identify different dates and really trying to make it as fair as possible, even though everything went straight downhill, right around mid to late April, and then just further in May and June. And now here we are in end of July. So I definitely understand the concern. But there's also now basically so many nodes have been created at such a cheap price where if you were compounding since mid-April for, in whatever regards, then of which you'd have a significant amount of more emissions here, then we'd be paying back at old prices. It would probably create a significant net negative to the protocol and would likely give a higher chance for lesser results for the totality of the picture. And it would also be difficult to find, hey, you got this node on this date and you cashed out this much at these prices, so this is how much you're owed. It would be very, very challenging to do that, and that's not currently in the plans. And I to be pretty upfront, I don't think that's going to be a thing that Polar does, or quite frankly, any other protocol in DeFi will do.
Yeah, thank you, man, for the clarification. I really appreciate you guys.
Hey, I appreciate you, man, and thank you for the question there, and thank you for asking it. And for anyone in the audience there, if you guys have questions like that, we're not going to get mad at you. We're not going to talk down on you or anything. It's stressful. It's there's a lot of people that I saw in the chats, granted, I've been saying please don't leverage since January, but people do, where they borrowed money to get into Polar because it was going up or it was staying stable, and then it put them in a pretty bad position. I went a little bit on a couple AMAs ago about just the mental health aspect of these things and how emotionally attached DeFi can make people because it's so quick and it's like old school, penny stocks, Wall Street. It is fast. It is very fast paced and it's very nerve wracking. So I totally understand that kind of struggle there. And I don't want anyone to think that we're going to downplay it or anything. Our job is to continue to bring you guys the best protocol that we possibly can and the best chance for success into the future. And that's why we're all here. And, we went through the downturns and here I was with you every single week. I'm not going to lie. I was stressed there too. I put a lot of money into this protocol, of my own personal money, quite a bit. And it's stressful. It sucks to see it go down, but fortunately I got to see how the team was working. And even when the old team kind of disbanded, I got to see how that went. And it gave me some reassurance and it gave me some motivation to get up here every day and work with you guys because I believe there's a future. And I said this last week, if I did not think Polar had any chance of survival by any means, I would not be here, because why would I sit on a sinking ship just for my own mental health purposes, let alone everything else business-wise? So I have faith that we're going to come back. I don't think we're going to come back to $3 per token, at least in the near future. But, that being said, I think that there's a genuine future in many of regards for Polar moving forward.
So another written question from Babushka is, so the game, is the game P2... I'm sorry. Okay, so the game P2E going to be total different thing from the nodes, right? Or are they going to be connected to each other because of the stealing of 10% of the pending rewards?
Yeah, so that's a good question there. So are they going to be connected to the others because of the stealing of 10% of the pending rewards? I don't really know what you mean by that.
I think he's referring,
too, but
he or she is referring to the there was after the Wave 3.1 migration, there was this talked about a function that would allow people in kind of a game, different from the P2E, to steal someone else's rewards, a small percentage of it.
Okay, yeah, I got you. I got you. Okay, so I haven't heard a whole lot of just yet of like the details on all that game side just yet. It's still, relatively, I don't want to say early in development, but there's a lot more that has to be developed for it as well. So I'm gonna let that kind of work itself out. But the play to earn game is going to be a separate entity that's still under the Polar wings here. So the Polar token, I'm sure, will be involved directly. Things like that. The protocol itself is obviously funding it, right? So it's going to be a part of Polar. But I think that what you're thinking of there is what we talked about a while back, where like it's basically like an interactive node protocol for which would be. I think that's what you're referring to there. I haven't heard any updates on that end yet, so I think we're focusing primarily on this play to earn game first, and that'll be the focus there. But anything else I get from that, other interactive kind of design, I'll let you guys know. But I think we've kind of, said, hey, we got to focus on this build. We're going to get the build out and go from there. And that's going to be a separate thing from the node protocol, connected mostly via just the Polar token.
Perfect. So the next question from Kramer, I think it's pronounced. Is there an idea on the lifespan of a node yet?
Yeah, so I'm not gonna speculate about that just yet because I haven't had I haven't heard any finite details there either. So I'm not gonna speculate there, but I do know it's going to be a reasonable period of time. And then as we get the information out, that'll all be put out. Ideally, it'll be put out in a written format prior to one of my AMAs so that I can then answer questions about it once it goes live. So I think that'll be the best strategy there. But as of right now, I don't know just yet. So I can't quite answer that for you, unfortunately. I do apologize. But we could bring up Sam Lukens, and I can deflect. Just kidding. I'm not deflecting. I just don't know the answer. Good question, though.
Howdy there. How are you?
Doing well, man. How are you?
Good, good. Always a pleasure to be up here. But I was curious about some of the investments we've put money into on Polar. I mean, personally, I was most excited about partnering with ChainBet when that kind of had come out. Is there any possibility of bringing people from ChainBet back and doing some mutual AMAs between us just to get updates out to our audience in Polar? I know a lot of people don't put in the homework to, or the time, they don't have it or whatnot, to go into ChainBet's Discord and search for answers. Is that something we could look into?
So I do see at least one person from the old ChainBet in the audience. So if they could reach out to me or I'll reach out to them, we'll try to link up there. I think having another AMA between us two might be fantastic. I got to see where they are there. I personally haven't been over in their Discord either, but I am excited about that opportunity. It's just been very busy in the world, so I've been unfortunately focused on other things there. But that would be great if we can get an update either from them or if we can do another AMA. And I don't care if it's still a month, 2 months, 3 months out. Let's get the people re-excited and get them motivated for both of us again. I think that'll be a good thing for all of us.
Exactly. That was kind of the thought. I know a lot of people just don't have the time or not interested in trying to search for answers on every single project. So bringing the answers to them and bringing the updates might be something fun and getting excitement back and all that good stuff, part of that marketing once we have V4 here. So,
yeah, hey, that's a great question. I'm going to make a note to reach out to them because I like that too. That was a good AMA that we had with them back in the day. So
it was. I loved it. I was super excited, and then the market decided to make all of us pause everything.
It gave us
betting, but great.
It gave us a new level of education. I think that's how I'm trying to look at it now.
That's true. That's true. But I'm still down to sports bet with my crypto. Whenever that's live.
Same. If you guys can get it live by September, going all in on the Eagles, Super Bowl or bust.
Hey, there we go. Anyway, have a good one. It was a pleasure coming up, and hopefully we can figure some stuff out there. So,
hey, great question. Appreciate you, man. Talk to you soon.
Yeah, appreciate you. Bye.
All right, cool. Hey, great question there. Of course, if there are, I think there's some more, maybe some more in the written questions, maybe not.
There actually are a few more. Next question from Babushka again. I saw in the general chat that the target is 0.25. How are we gonna achieve that?
Yeah, so it's not a short-term target. I've talked about this a couple times in the past. It's not like we're going to get 0.25 in 3 weeks, but I think that is a reasonable target point in the sense that if we were to be able to effectively formulate this burn strategy that we have going on and incentivize the token price to go up, and hopefully the markets aren't quite as terrible as they are now, I think there could be some some ability to get back to that point. I think 0.25 wouldn't be out of the realm of possibilities by any means. And that's kind of where we'd like to aim for. And obviously that's a big target, right? Because where we are right now, that's a decent ways away. We're at 0.0268 something, I think. So with that being said, obviously 0.05 would be a great target first, and then 0.1, and then 0.12, and all the way up from there. But I think as we start building those, that's where we'd love the token price to kind of be at a reasonable point where it can stay there without really struggling, and then allow it to ideally grow from there. So I think that'll be kind of like I said, it's a goal. It's a longer term goal. I'm not going to say it's a 5-year plan or anything like that, but it's one decent market turn, and some of these things that we're putting out there being successful, we can get there, and that's a target that I'd like to see as well.
I just saw there was a bit of confusion about the question from earlier, the separation of the P2E game to the nodes and also the P2E game's effect on PA, etc.
Yeah, so I'm going to answer like 3 of those at once. CJ also just said, how's the P2E game going to work? All that there. So all those questions, we'll put them all into a big ball here. I don't know yet. So I honestly don't know all the details of how the game is going to work. We got one of our first teasers released about it just 3 days ago. There's a lot of work that needs to be done there. I don't want to throw out information that's going to either change or just be proven inaccurate if I don't know just yet. As far as a correlation of the ecosystem, I don't necessarily know exactly how the nodes are going to directly be associated with it, and there's going to be a few different variables to be at from there. Again, I just don't know. Maybe the nodes represent an NFT that represents a place in the game. I don't know yet. That'd be a good system. But as of right now, the thing that I know is that the Polar game is going to be a game that should and will benefit the price of the token Polar. So that's something I can sit here and definitively say. Ideally, there would be some connection in some way as far as the ecosystem is concerned, but I also think it would be nice to have the nodes kind of as their own thing, and then the game as its own thing, and they just kind of support each other. So there's a few different ways that can come out and about into the future. So I think that'll be pretty interesting as we navigate through there. And Babushka, the looting system, I really don't know. Like I said, I haven't heard too many updates about that aspect just yet. If that's going to involve nodes, if that's going to involve just internal pieces of the game itself, I'm not entirely sure exactly how that's going to work because we just got our first teaser, unfortunately. But as that information comes out and we can release more information and more is finite, I will definitely put it out there. I think I said in the chat the other day, I promise I'm not keeping any secrets right now. I'm just going over the information that's been presented to us, and this is where we are. It's actively being built. That's what that teaser was there for, is to get excited about because it's a real thing that's coming. But the very smaller, intricate details of it will be released in due time. I think there'll be plenty of updates between now and then, beyond just the 3.5 and the 4.0, but involving the game and how it benefits you guys directly. So, and there we go. We got what is his title in here? He is one of the developers of the game itself. He said there will be a tournament with rewards. I'm sure we're going to get so much more information about that. Quite frankly, it's probably going to get to the point that I'm doing AMAs just for the game itself and then AMAs for the nodes itself. So that'll, in my opinion, that'll be a good thing to kind of keep them a little bit separate if they're designed to be separate, but also allow them to feed into each other because it's the same ecosystem. It's all Polar. So we'll kind of see how that goes from there. I look forward to that expansion, and if it lets me do more AMAs, that's kind of where I like to be honest. That's a role that I like to play, so I'm more than happy to do them.
So there's another question from the general chat right now. Are the nodes still going to decay, or will there be a time they go away?
So they won't go away, but the decay variables will begin at the version 4.0, and that's kind of where we've gone over. I would recommend reading over that pretty much the last few announcements from the general announcement area, and that kind of goes into the philosophy behind it all. But there will be a decay system in some aspect there. Obviously, once it gets down to 0% of a life, it doesn't mean the token goes away, or excuse me, the node goes away and dies. It just means that it's no longer going to be producing Polar, or, it's not producing a daily yield at that point. But you can still bring it back to life. So it'll still be there. It'll still be your node, your NFT. It doesn't die off and just, disappear into the darkness. It'll still be there. I was thinking of another word. It doesn't matter. But it won't go away entirely, but you would have to bring it back to life if it were to hit 0%.
So, the next question, I think, would be from Loco Kabiza. I hope I pronounced it right. I'm joining the AMA a little late today, so we'll definitely catch it on the replay. But I'm curious if it's wise to keep the tokens in wallet or continue to compound. When I jumped on, you were talking about cheap nodes being created, being fair to all, etc.
Yeah, it's a great question there. So, Loco, that was more so in a response to somebody asking about potential refunds of what they put into the protocol back in April. And, I kind of just mentioned that it's not possible for us to do them as far as the refunds are concerned, because there's been so many different variables plus markets, and it's just an industry that it's hard to do that. So I wasn't really saying it's not good to create new nodes by any means, but that's totally up to you. I don't like to give people direct financial advice on any of this. Only thing I generally ask the community is try to support us on the socials, like just like, share our Twitter post, be involved in the Discord. That's what I like to ask people to do and encourage people to do. But beyond that, if you like to hold Polar because you think it's a safer bet, or if you'd like to create nodes because you think it's a safer bet, or quite frankly, if you want to sell Polar because it's a safer bet, that is all up to you. I can't really guide you into the decisions to make. I can only tell you the information that is coming out and the things that we're building towards to give you the best tools to make that decision for yourself, hopefully there. And I think it's going to be a good one regardless. That's just my personal opinion. Like I said, if we grow effectively and we can formulate some of these things accordingly, either having tokens or the nodes should be a positive.
So the next question, I think we talked about it quite a lot lately. Have Polar ever considered creating traditional NFTs, not nodes that earn rewards, but digital artwork exclusive to Polar that can be traded, etc., creating some more utility for Polar?
Yeah, so we definitely talked about that way back in the day. I remember I had a conversation with Enor, and we talked about it kind of lately on AMAs, where he's just not super into putting out a product out there that is by design not really for any utility purposes, right? So he's really not on board with having an NFT that would just cost something but have nothing to give back to people except some artwork. That's just where he stands on it. I think it's still a decent thing to consider, but it costs money to make those, of course, because you have to have artists and even the contract side of it, which isn't hard, but it's time and money that has to be put into it. And then obviously if you do an NFT collection that has 1,000 traits, that's a whole different variable as well. And it's also, let's say we're also in a very different environment. So we'd pretty much only be selling this NFT to those in the Polar community. And you could say, hey, yeah, you can buy it with Polar. And it just gives you an option to buy something else from there, which I guess if I were to develop something like that, I would make it as like a direct burn strategy, where I've gone over in depth what the burns are, so I'm not going to go on that again. But I'd say, hey, you can buy these, and the smart contract routes it. So when you pay X Polar, it sends it right to a dead wallet, and that Polar is removed from circulation. That would be a strategy that I think would be effective, and it would basically just be a wash as far as the creation cost of all the artwork. But it could be something I would think would be interesting, but it's not necessarily in the plans right now, in my opinion. or excuse me, to my knowledge.
Perfect. I think that was the last written question so far.
All right, cool. So I'm going to kind of just filibuster this for a few minutes here, allow people to kind of question anything if they would like to. Hey, if you guys want to request to speak, do so. We're coming up on an hour. I love it. That's great to have here. So I waited all the way to the end to go into the economic impact of the decisions the Federal Reserve made today. So if you're uninterested in world finance, check on out. This is your time to do so. So obviously the Federal Reserve approved a 75 basis points. Basically, you're increasing the federal rate by 0.75. So 0.75%, right? And they did talk about how they don't think we're in a recession, yada, yada, yada. So if you guys have some time, I would highly recommend go do a little bit of research on monetary policy during the last real recession that we had, not the COVID one, but the one in 2008. So the housing market crash and the recession that followed that there. And see what the Federal Reserve did at that point, and then look at the federal rates at that point, because I believe they were upwards of 5 to 6% at that time. We are still below 2%. And if you guys get even more nerdy and interested, you can look up the Fisher equation and try to get an understanding of how and why these increases of rates actually benefits the totality of the economy. And because the United States is so large of an economy, it does impact the world economy. So that's also very interesting because we see our crypto markets. This is what I kind of want to get to. I'll leave all the other nerdy economic craziness behind. Our crypto markets are moving very, very, very similar to the stock markets. And you guys can think about that however you'd like. That is very interesting. It hasn't always been like that. It has been to an extent in the past, but now it's almost a direct correlation. Where stocks go up, crypto goes up. Stocks go down, crypto goes down. World finances are moving crypto. This is not a bad thing. This is telling me and telling you and telling the world that we're not so far off from crypto being a legitimate thing in the space. And I don't care what whatever billionaires say crypto's not good. What do you think they're doing? Obviously, when prices go down, they're accumulating because they can. They can, they're worth X billions of dollars. They could put 100 million into Bitcoin. Boom. And then it 3 times as one time and they sell out 50% of it. They still win. So keep an eye on the broader picture, not what the media wants you to see and how they're putting the headlines out, but how the actual financial markets are moving with particularly Bitcoin and Ethereum, because those two are very, very correlated right now, which I think is going to lead to a pretty significant positive in the crypto markets in the long term. I'm talking 5 to 10 years. When Bitcoin is directly correlated with the financial world markets, that is when Bitcoin as a currency can be introduced, where it's not just in this random country, this random ATM, but you can have a card, in your wallet, and you go and you pay with Bitcoin at the grocery store or whatever. That is not super far off, and I think that the world markets are preparing for it just as anybody else is, because if the stock markets are moving with the crypto markets, or excuse me, the crypto markets moving the stock markets, that means that those Fortune 500 companies that are moving the stock markets are also moving the crypto markets. Causation, correlation, I don't know. It's very interesting. I cannot wait to see where we are in just a few years from now. So things to keep in mind. I think we're in a good place crypto-wise. It's been a rough few months. It's been stressful as heck. Not going to pretend like it hasn't been, but the long term, I'm seeing very positive signs in this industry. And as many of you know, I left my other full-time occupation for crypto full-time in May. So this is what I do, and I would not be doing it if I had fears that crypto was going to be dead, which we hear from the news. It's dead. Remember, what was that, a month ago? Bitcoin is dead, if you guys don't remember. So it isn't dead. We're here for the future. I'm incredibly interested to see where these financial markets turn. So I'm pretty curious about how this all goes up. So if you guys were not interested in all that, I do apologize, but the audience hasn't gone down in size, so maybe you are. Maybe I'll, get a little bit more into the economic side of it all. But it's very, very interesting as we start moving forward into the world of crypto, and the world of crypto leads to a better place for Polar. So it's somewhat related. All right, I'll get off my soapbox now. All right, so I've kind of just went over 5 minutes of things that are less relevant to Polar, but more so to the broader market. I haven't seen any updated questions, just some suggestions. That's good there. So I think I'm going to bring this AMA to a close. I'll have the recording up here very shortly, but I just want to say, hey, I thank you guys so much again for coming out here. Thank you, Julian. I'm going to get better and better at it every time I do it. I think I'm getting a little better. So
It's actually perfect.
perfect. So thank you all for coming out here. Look forward to chatting with you guys throughout the week in the Discord, and we'll catch you again same time, same place next week on our Polar Community AMA. You guys have a great week, great day. Talk to you all soon.